I'd like to call the meeting to order of January 25th, 2017, Willits City Council. And do we have an agenda now, or do we?
After roll call.
Okay. So, pledge to the flag. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Kathy, roll call.
Okay. Councilmember Rodriguez. Here. Strong.
Here.
Ornstein.
Here.
Stransky.
Yes.
Mayor Gonzalez.
Here.
So we would like to request an amendment to the agenda to add a second closed session item, which would be anticipated litigation. So that would be 2 cases of anticipated litigation that we would be taking up in closed session tonight.
So we need a motion in a second.
Yes.
All right. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
One second.
All right. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right.
Thank you.
All right. Public communications. The council welcomes participation in its meetings. Comments shall be limited to 3 minutes per person so that everyone may be given an opportunity to be heard. To expedite matters and avoid repetition, whenever any group of persons wishes to address the council on the same subject matter, the mayor may request that a spokesperson be chosen by the group. This item is limited to matters under the jurisdiction of the city council which are not on the posted agenda. Public criticism of the city council, commission, boards, and agencies will not be prohibited. No action shall be taken. Does anybody want to speak? Please state your name, and if you want to write it in for us so that they can...
I am Professor Ping Pong. The last time I was at a city council meeting, I did not stand for the pledge. And that's because I was disgusted with the regime that was in power, and it made me very unpatriotic. But things have changed. I like the regime that's in power now, and I can understand how there are people who are now, they don't want to stand and salute the flag because they don't like the regime that's in power now. But what I like about it is that the Constitution is on the top of the priority list. So I want to start by reading the First Amendment. It's very brief, and I'm sure all of you are aware of it because you took your oath of office to defend the Constitution. Amendment number 1, freedom of religion, speech, and the press, rights of assembly and petition. Congress shall make no laws respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, or abridging the freedom of speech or of the press, or the right of the people peaceably to assemble and to petition the government for a redress of grievances. So now I'm going to read a New Year's greeting from the group Anonymous. Anonymous, we are getting bigger every year, and governments are fearing what we do and how many of the masses we are helping to wake up. This is why they have introduced fake news, because they want to use this war on fake news because the truth is spreading. Hello world, we are Anonymous. That time is here once again, the time to set goals of changing our lives for the better as we bid 2016 goodbye and welcome 2017 in the hopes of becoming better people and a better world. With all that has gone on in 2016, all the good and all the bad, let's not push the things that can teach us aside. We must keep that with us all the time. We must keep the bad and the good. We must learn from history. We must not forget it. We must all keep what we remember on record so that the ones in power cannot change it. They will. They always do. In another decade, what they say in schools, how much of what we have fought for will be erased or changed. We must always let our children know the truth so they can pass it on to their children and so on. Remember the real stories and not the lies that are constantly spewed from the authors, spewed from the mouths of so-called journalists, especially CNN, from the mainstream media. I leave you with this: be at war with your vices, at peace with your neighbors, and let every new year make you a better person.
All right, thank you. Is there anybody else who would like to address the council?
Hi, Pete Swanton. Two issues, not issues, but the statements I'd like to make. I was approached yesterday by George Dorner, a Vietnam veteran, and he approached me about the possibility of Willits hosting the Vietnam Veterans Moving Wall. And it intrigued me, and so just putting it out there that we're doing a little research on that, and we will be coming back if we decide dates work, if it's even available. We'll be coming back to the City Council with more information on that, okay? It's also come to my attention that recently somebody has tried to get a business license in town and has had a difficult time doing so, and the process taking a lot of time. There's no question the city staff is definitely, taxed, no question about it. I have been the recipient of really good, prompt service from the city with my businesses, and most recently, even a year ago. And it was a very, very smooth process. And I understand things can get tied up and there are reasons for it, but if there's any way we could streamline it so that other people's experience with that are as, as positive as mine. So again, I understand that there's a lot at stake, but the streamlining process would be really great at a time when we really, really need to expedite something what seems so simple as a business license, but I understand there are other complications that can arise that may be out of the city's hands. So anyway, I just wanted to put that out there, and that's it for tonight. Okay.
Thank you. Anybody else? Okay, I guess we'll move into public matters. 3A, discussion possible action to allow the installation of fitness equipment adjacent to the Hale Creek Trail under a grant-funded project awarded to the Nutritional Services Department at Howard Memorial Hospital by Adventist Health. Do we have somebody to speak on that?
Good evening. My name is Kyle Evans. I'm the Director of Nutritional Services at Frank Howard Hospital. And the grant, it was an innovation grant that we requested through Adventist Health Corporate. And part of that is an outreach to forge the path to a healthier future in our communities. And part of that the proposal was to integrate a park horse trail system for our community close and adjacent to the hospital. And we were awarded that grant to do that. And Keith is kind of the representative with Howard Foundation with the Commonwealth Garden. And we've kind of talked about how to kind of integrate that into the Hale Creek system that's already existing. And if that's a possibility, it could be good for everyone with our hospital community, our staff, as well as patient families to be able to enjoy that opportunity so close to where the location is. So the funds are there to be donated to purchase the equipment and also to be allocated for the installation as well, and even to preserve some maintenance requirements as years progress.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, one of the things that we made sure, after talking with Vivian about this, was that there would be some money set aside from the grant. There's enough money in the grant to install the equipment completely, and with all the equipment, the tools, the concrete, the rock, and then there would be some left over to set aside for a maintenance fund. And I spoke with the captain at Parliament Fork, who helps us now at the garden and along the trail currently when we do trail maintenance. And so it's a very simple form to fill out through Kyle, that they would make an agreement that we would pay them on an as-need basis to maintain the equipment, so there'd be no burden to the city financially whatsoever.
Would they be the ones installing it?
No, I'm going to install it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I'm going to install the equipment myself. And so on an as-need basis, which may be very rare, possibly some vandalism or some tagging or whatever may happen on it, we would have them come in and clean it up and fix it. So it wouldn't be a burden to the city financially in any way whatsoever. And also, the city would be held harmless as far as liability. That's what once it's installed, we know it's installing it on city property, as we did the benches along there as well. But you guys would be held harmless and vice versa.
What about insurance? Do you guys have insurance on, because obviously there could be some issues with people getting...
Who's those guys, Ron?
I'm sorry, the hospital.
The hospital is donating this to the city.
Okay.
They're not going to own the equipment once it's installed. Through a grant, they're paying for the equipment.
No, okay.
We're going to install it, and it's a gift to the city, basically, along, as is the trail.
Okay, so basically, if anybody gets injured, that would be up to the city to cover, I would assume.
Right, but I did talk with Mark Ferguson, and his only suggestion that he wanted to see in the approval of this is that we enter into a hold harmless agreement with the hospital, and they are working on that. But on city, we are responsible for anything on city property.
Okay.
It's like in the trail run, somebody was
Right.
fall on the trail, it's the same thing.
Yeah, no, I just, that's not a
Yeah.
problem, I just wanted to clarify
Sure.
what that was.
Larry?
I just want you to remember that there is a north end of town, and so if you ever get any more funding again, it would be really nice to have it at the north end of town also. It's a nice item, and I think it's an excellent thing to do, but I just don't want to drive all the way down to Hale Creek to use it. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Where on the north end of town could you put it?
What?
Where up here could you put it on this end of town?
Right over there at the park.
In the city park?
Recreation code.
Well, I'd like to say that 2 years ago, I ran that trail when you were first
Right.
out there grading it, and I was running on it while you were still working on it. And about a week and a half ago, I had an opportunity to go out there and with Leadership Mendocino and take a tour
Right.
of the hospital and eat at the restaurant and check out the garden. And I was really, really impressed. And we're just very fortunate to have that in our community. I'm excited about the equipment going in at the trail. I live on the north end, but I ran to the south end and ran the trail. So, yeah, glad to have it.
Any questions at all about it?
Do we need a
Pretty simple.
motion?
Yes.
All right. So do I have a motion to accept this gift?
I move approval.
Second.
Pick one. I'll let Sabrina second.
And I would just
Subject to-
ask that the motion reflect that we're going to have a hold harmless agreement and authorize me as a city manager to sign, right?
Yes. That was,
Also, Adrian, there's going to be a contract in place with Parliament Fork as far as the maintenance. That, I already talked to them.
Okay.
All right.
yes, so my motion includes those conditions.
So motion second, any further discussion up here? Otherwise, does anybody from the public want to comment? Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Motion carried. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
And item B, discussion possible action or possible adoption of resolution requesting Caltrans install highway signage for the purpose of guiding motorists to our downtown area to be provided. Is that a Dusty thing?
Yes.
Good evening, council members, mayors. Congratulations, Councilwoman Rodriguez, on getting into the Leadership Mendocino program. I've only heard good things about that. Maybe I'll get to do that one day too, but I'll be interested to hear how your experience goes. This is a resolution authorizing staff to move forward with establishing some downtown signage on Highway 101, as well as the off-ramps. Some directional signage, and also maybe a sign on Highway 20 leading into Willits. Staff's been working with Caltrans staff to explore opportunities to establish additional signage to direct motorists to services within Willits. One idea was actually putting some signage on the highway to say downtown Willits at our North Main Street exit. According to Caltrans regulations, the City Council needs to pass a resolution to move forward with that idea. This doesn't, require us to pay for signage. It's just the first step in moving forward towards that. Staff's looking, we'll have to work with Caltrans through the encroachment permit process to identify the exact location, size, and number of signs. But we're looking to establish a downtown Willits signs in both directions before the North Main Street exit. Also some signs at the off-ramps directing people towards downtown, and then finally one directional sign at that first left-hand turn going into Willits, as well as a smaller sign that would go on Highway 20 directing people to downtown Willits on the left there. There is a cost associated with that. We would have to pay to fabricate the signs to Caltrans standards. They would maintain the ones that are on the highway. We would maintain the ones that were off of the highway. You have an estimate in front of you, somewhere between $10,000 and $12,000. We actually do have the capacity to make some of the signs ourselves with equipment that we have down at the Public Works Yard. We're limited on the size of signs that we can make, but that's a potential cost savings if we can make some of the signs ourselves. We'll certainly be looking to work with Caltrans to try to waive the encroachment permit fee if we can, and you know, explore the ideas of actually doing the installation ourselves. As best as we can, we'll try to use existing posts that are out there so that we don't have to put in new ones. So hopefully we can get that fee reduced. But right now we've got about $10,000 to $12,000 to get the downtown Willits signage put in place.
That's all of the signs that you talked about?
Yeah.
Or the ones that are not on actual 101?
That'd be all the total signs, approximately 6 signs, including making the signs labor and then getting the encroachment permit as well.
Thank you.
I'm a little confused, but maybe you can clarify something for me. Where exactly are you proposing to place these signs? Now, you said that at the northern interchange, this is down when you're heading north and you come down off the ramp and you go back to to Main Street or Old 101. So that's where the one set of signs would be, correct?
So going back to the actual interchange itself on the highway, you'd be traveling, and just as you see a North Main Street exit in both directions, either on that sign or probably maybe before it would say Downtown Willits. So it'd just be your standard green sign with the white lettering. Maybe you've noticed some downtown signs for other communities. When
So this would grab people before they continue north?
Yeah, or south. It'd be on both
Okay.
the southern and northern.
Direction at the northern interchange?
Yeah.
Okay, now at the southern interchange, you mentioned something about putting signs on Highway 20. Where would that be?
Highway 20, as you arrive into Willits there at the intersection with Main Street, you know, Safeway's in front of you.
Okay.
We have that green strip of land along the south side of Highway 20 there, and putting a sign saying Downtown Willits.
Okay, because, you know, in past discussions that we've had about this thing, it seems that there's a lot of confusion with people coming north from the south end. You know, they're heading north, and they come up to the interchange, and we've heard reports that they missed the turnoff to come down the ramp to get onto Highway 20 to come into town, and they wind up on Main Street, on, you know, the northern interchange, and that's where these signs would come in. But we still have the issue of South Main Street. And it sounds like, you know, you're promoting the downtown section up here, and that's a good thing, but we're not promoting and maybe even ignoring South Main Street, which coincidentally contains all of the gas stations in town, all the fast food restaurants. In other words, the source of most of the general fund tax revenue that the city enjoys. So what I'm wondering is, you know, I'm fine, you know, with promoting the northern end. I think that's wonderful to make sure people get off at that end and come into town. But I think we also need to focus on getting them to get off at the south end as well and come up South Main Street. So do we have any more plans for that sort of thing?
Yeah, we've been requesting a multitude of signage, not only to promote the north end of town, but the south end of town as well. And something that we've discussed before, and that I've personally witnessed myself, is there's a lack of directional once you get off the exit as to where the services are. And last Wednesday we had a meeting with Caltrans staff, and they were able to show us some potential additional signs that they're going to be putting in place, and that includes directional signs once you get off of the exit in both directions. So, for instance, on the southern interchange, you have, you know, a sign that says Highway 20, Fort Bragg, and it has the service signs, and then you get off the exit. Well, once you get on the off-ramp, we're looking to have additional signage duplicating those service signs and pointing in the direction. And then, once again, when you get to that turn, having another one pointing to the direction. And it might say, not only Willits, but Fort Bragg Highway 20 West, and then all those general service signs again. And it appears that there, and I don't have a timeline for you, other than we've really asked to get this all in place before the summer months. But we should expect to get some additional directional signage.
Okay, sounds good.
There is now a sign as you go on the off-ramp, as you're going northbound, and you're on the off-ramp, there is a sign now that has the little icons for different, restaurants, motels, whatever, with a sign that says to the left, maybe 50 yards before you come to the stop sign. So there should be another one at the intersection that says Willits that way, or something.
That's right.
That just maximize signs, and I know you're working on that on all of those, all the different entrances to the city, and we just need as much as we can possibly get,
And as soon as
including, including paying for some more of our own, because it's the lifeblood of a lot of our businesses. We need to get people to come through town.
And since we're talking about, we're also expecting to have the logo signs installed at the southern interchange at some point too. And
Yeah,
we're working to
with
try to figure out how to
individual
get them at the
businesses.
as well. That's right.
Yeah, that's good too.
The one problem that we have now is that when you come down off the off-ramp, you cannot see any lights to the city at all, especially if you're coming from the south going to the north. And when you get off, you just run into a road and you don't know if it's 2 miles or 10 miles to the next gas station or whatever. And so I think along with that, this is Highway 20 and we would like for you to come in or whatever it's going to say. We also need to say, within 2 hours, into 2 minutes or 3 miles or whatever it is, we need to have an indication. So if I'm low on gas and I pull off, I know within, 2 miles that I'm going to be able to get to a gas station. And that's the key item at night, because when you come down off that road and you're just a tourist, you don't know if you should go on or if you should chance getting off or whatever. And and I've mentioned that to you and you've mentioned it to me also. So that's my thing.
Yeah, in the update that Caltrans staff gave to us, it did include a mileage marker with that directional sign.
Thank you.
I was going to add that I was at the meeting with Dusty and Adrian, and Dusty brought a lot of the stuff that you mentioned, Larry, and it was my understanding, Dusty, that this resolution is something that Caltrans said we needed in order for them to do it's some specific program, right, for the downtown, right?
Yeah, apparently, we were talking a plethora of signage.
Yeah.
Apparently, to get the downtown Willits specific signage,
We needed
that
this.
requires a resolution.
That's
Yeah.
why. So that's why this resolution, even though on top of all that, you've been working on the other signage and what we discussed at the other meeting.
Are you talking about internal signage that'll be on our city streets for our own use?
Yeah, I mean, we've been talking about doing wayfinding signage within the city as well. But
Well, is that
this is specific to just signage that says downtown.
I understand that, but I'm trying to get the connection between, is Caltrans, would they be involved with our internal signs as well?
No, but they would coordinate with us, is what I understood, that we would have our, we would at some point put our own signs up, but this is specific to them.
No,
getting off
I
the
understand
road.
that, but I'm just trying to see what the connection with.
Yeah, with Caltrans still retaining our Main Street until the relinquishment, we would be required to work with them if we wanted to come up with our own theme and signage to start connecting the dots within the city.
Okay.
Yeah, but they said they'd work with us if we came up with a theme, but we'd have to run that by them before.
Would they give us some money for that, do you think? Just asking.
You can always ask, right? Yeah.
Okay.
Just the sign at the northern interchange, once you're off and you're ready to turn left onto Old 101, that would be on county jurisdiction.
Right.
But I guess it's also, I don't know if it's also Caltrans. Anyway, do we need?
At the south end, you mean?
No, yeah. At the-
no, the
No,
north
I'm
end,
sorry,
at
the
the
north
north
end.
end.
At the north end. At the south end, everything where we want signs is pretty much Caltrans's.
Yeah, because it would now become.
And it's also Highway 20.
Yeah.
But when you get off at the northern interchange, once you're off of the interchange, you're no longer on Caltrans's property,
They
nor
apparently have
are
a-
you yet in the city
But they
limits.
apparently have some sort of, I'll use sphere of influences, but they mentioned that.
So we can get that handled, that's all.
But yeah, there may be a time where we're working with the county to establish signage, yeah, on either end of the city limits before the interchange.
So we talked about how this would fund those 6 signs, but can you, for the public purposes, can you talk a little bit about the other part that we had a discussion about yesterday, about how people still need to apply to Caltrans for the individual business signs and what the plan is for the north and the south end?
Yeah, so we're talking about the logo program and those signs. And what Caltrans has explained to staff is that we should expect to have those logo signs in either direction at the southern interchange. And for reasons that I can't quite understand, so I'll just describe it as a technicality, we're not getting those logo signs at the northern interchange. What we've asked Caltrans is for direction as to how we would request an exception to that. For instance, we have something like 40 or 50 restaurants, but there's only an opportunity for people to put 6 logos on the food sign at the other interchange. Folks need to contact Aaron Dorsch with Caltrans. I don't have his information in front of me. Reported out at the last meeting. There's been a couple emails that went out to the local business owner, including the Chamber of Commerce, that's been disseminated. I know you gave some valuable information on your Facebook page. I heard not on Facebook. And there's been a couple other separate emails from the Chamber that are also accurate. But if there's any local businesses that would like some assistance or further direction on that, you're welcome to contact me here at City Hall, and I'll do my best to steer you in the right direction.
I've got his number.
But you are required to contact Caltrans, work with them. The application has been sent out through those email chains, but I do have that if folks are needing that. There is a fee associated with that, and there's a good website that provides information as far as the fees and eligibility requirements. There'll be one for food, one for lodging, and one for gas.
I do have the number for Aaron Dorsch. It's Aaron Dorsch, D-O-R-S-C-H, and his phone number is 707-445-6389.
I just want to make sure that we're advocating for that north, the logo program on the north end, as it seems at this time that doesn't seem to be a priority for Caltrans.
Apparently they explained it, but again, like Bessie, I didn't quite get. They explained some sort of Caltrans rule or whatever, and they did say there was a process, but we obviously need to continue facilitating that process. But they made it sound like that wouldn't be allowed, and again, I can't remember what the phrase they used, but
Some like number of miles between.
something like that, yeah. So.
Well, there's another aspect that I'd like to throw out at you to think about. When you're talking about individual signs, that's problematic, because with the number of businesses that would like to be visible, you have too many to put on a sign, especially when someone's driving along at 30, 40 miles an hour to read them all. So how about considering somewhere, once you get off the interchange and into city territory, if we have a little pull-in area and we have a sort of a kiosk erected, a place where people can pull off and they can actually get out of their car and look at this whole list of everything that's in town. Let them stop, and it's not a big deal for them to do that. And it could be a little more specific as well, with names, addresses, whatever information.
A little tourist kiosk.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And it's easy to read. Nothing that has to be a big deal, but just something that would make it a little more informative for the motorist.
Actually, I had one thing, Adrian, since Susie isn't here. We didn't have this in the budget, right? So,
No.
What's the mechanism for this? Do we need another motion for
A budget amendment? We would. She would have to bring that back. She's
okay.
out of town.
So we would just pass this one for now for Caltrans purposes, and then we would have a budget amendment.
Right, and we are planning to bring back budget amendments with the mid-year budget, which will be, I think, 2 meetings out.
Okay. All right.
So, and again, we are hoping to be able to make most, if not all the signs in-house.
Except for the big ones, I remember Caltrans talking about that
Ones on.
It's possibly the ones on the highway are going to be too big, and we thought about, let's do 2 small ones and we can kind of merge. I mean, we're pretty good at.
So, Madge, go ahead.
I know the Chamber is working on more web presence, and if we have a quick web reference, that for most people these days is enough. Then they don't have to pull off, get out of their car and read all the different restaurants. They can just do their little, anyway, so to coordinate with the Chamber and whatever web presence we have for all of those businesses that, and then they also don't have to pay extra to have their little logo put on. So especially the small restaurants, smaller establishments aren't going to necessarily be able to get their names on those big logo things. So anyway, coordinating with the web.
I have one other thing, on the resolution, I guess, eventually we're going to get to the resolution itself. The third paragraph in the resolution says, whereas the City Council designates the North Main Street exit 573, I guess that's the one, that is the north exit, correct? As the main northbound and southbound exit to direct motorists into the downtown area. And I'm not trying to make an issue about the downtown area. I do support the downtown area, I do, but I can't see us ignoring the south end as well. So I'm wondering if this wording in the resolution is too specific and kind of exclusionary. If maybe we should reword it slightly to include the south interchange as well?
We can only have two signs. So we wouldn't be able to put downtown Willits at both exits, so we got to pick one.
Okay, so this is just for Caltrans, but we can do whatever we want to do, maybe.
This is only specific to the downtown Willits signage.
Okay.
This certainly isn't intent to say that the northbound exit's more important than the southbound exit.
Even though it does say that.
Reasons why that's perfectly understandable. This is just saying that for strictly the downtown Willits signage, we prefer to have them at the northbound exit.
Okay, so we will be taking action on the other end at some point?
Well, hopefully Caltrans is well on their way to getting additional signage established at the southbound exit for those directional signage that we discussed a little bit earlier.
Okay.
But luckily, we don't have to pass a resolution for every single sign. It's just the downtown Willits specifically that their code calls out the need for the resolution.
That seems to be because Caltrans isn't promoting the north end.
Yeah.
They're more concerned with the south end, so I think that's the purpose.
Well, yeah, I get that. Yeah.
Okay.
Do you want to move a motion now, or do you want to wait and do public?
I want to do public comment. Anybody from the public like to speak to this? Please.
Can I sit here and speak?
No, why don't you come on up?
Levitate yourself.
That way the folks at TV land can hear you.
Well, I mean, it's post facto, but the whole design is stupid. I mean, the first time I came into Willits under the new entrance, I mean, it's unappealing, and I think it's dangerous, and so all this after the fact, trying to make it more attractive or more convenient, I think is going to be hard to do. And then the other thing is, what has Willits actually got to attract people? And so part of my perspective on the new country that we are living in is that our president said he's going to cut regulations 75%, and he's going to cut taxes a whole bunch. So I want you all to cut regulations, the ones that are preventing economic growth in this city, and I want you to cut back on the fees that you charge for whatever it is that needs to be inspected or however, and have exemptions for people who need them.
Okay, is this related to the sign? We're talking about a sign.
Well, I mean, I'm sitting here listening to you all go on and on about this signage, and I think it's ludicrous because you keep repeating yourselves, number one. And number two, you'd think that there will be a design done before the meeting happened to present to the meeting about this. So it just seems to me a lot of talk about a topic that could more efficiently be addressed if there was a presentation on the signage that is proposed.
Hello, I'm Greta Connie. I co-own The Book Juggler with Chris Harper. I wanted to thank Dusty and other city staff for their work on signage, moving it forward with Caltrans. I also wanted to say I encourage you all to be forceful with Caltrans in asking for a logo board at the north end as well as the south end. I understand they have regulations, but if you drive through Cloverdale, you see that they have, I think it was 6 different logo boards. They had 2 at each of their exits. And the logo boards aren't just good for business, they're good for promoting to to travelers that this is a community that has more than 1 or 2 things to offer. So if they see that there are 5 different gas stations, if they see that there are 6 different restaurants, it gives the impression that this is a community of size that is worth a pull-off. It's not just a one-strip town that has 1 thing on it that may or may not be open if you're driving through at 10 p.m. So having those boards with multiple businesses established on them indicates that it's really worth stopping. So I think it's important, and I encourage you to stick it to them.
Thank you, Greta.
That's a tough act to follow, but I would concur with her, and I personally do think we've got so much to offer. I had this conversation yesterday in Fort Bragg, and people were blown away when I list all the things that Willits has. I'm proud of Willits. So anyway, you know, my first thought was, hey, we need to Caltrans should pay for that. You know, my first thought was, you know, so I got my ire up a little bit, but, you know, some of my local business people said, you know, maybe that's not the best idea. So, you know, regardless, signage is critical. I like the work that's been done. I know there's been a huge amount of staff time put into this, and a lot of progress has been made, so encourage it to get done. Okay?
All right, I'll bring it back up here. Does anybody else here have anything else?
I'd like to make a motion that we approve the requested action.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor of passing the resolution in support of the downtown Willits signage?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carried. All right.
Thank you.
It's the least we can do.
And again, thank you, Dusty, for staying on top of this. I was talking to Dusty today about other things he's working on, so you're definitely getting your money's worth out of Dusty. Consent calendar. I was told that we were pulling the December 14th minutes. Those will come back to us. But otherwise, we have the minutes for January 11th, warrant distributions, and nomination of Olga O'Neill to serve as the city's representative on the Mendocino County Library Advisory Board. And Olga is here. Do you want to say anything, Olga, or?
No, I just came because my name was on consent.
Okay, thank you for coming.
Yes, and it's, you know, I'm a community member and have time to do such things. It's good to be here.
All right.
I'm happy to get you consent to nominate me. I'm very happy to represent the city with the library board.
I love it when people that are nominated show up. You know you're definitely interested and not shanghaied into it, so.
Get your name on the board agenda, you need to come.
All right, so motion on the consent?
Actually, I noticed when I was reading the minutes that there was a change in the a committee position for, was it the railroad?
Oh.
And that wasn't reflected in the minutes.
It said January 11th.
So if we could make that amendment.
Sure. And we'll have more to share on that note when we get to committee reports.
Okay, so with that change in the minutes, do I have a motion on the consent?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Do I have a second on the consent? Second. Motion and a second. Any further discussion?
You have to, I think you ought to clarify that the motion pulls the December 4th minutes. I think that is...
December 14th minutes, and I said it...
14th.
Yeah, I brought that up, that we were pulling those.
No, but that has to be part of the motion. You can't,
okay.
You can't approve.
I'll add that to my motion.
All right, thank you, Sabrina. All right. So with that in mind, all those in favor?
Aye.
All right. Informational reports. Thank you, Olga.
There's none.
None, okay. Right to appeal. Persons who are dissatisfied with decisions of the City Council may have the right to review the decision by a court. The city has adopted Section 1094.6 of the Code of Civil Procedure, which generally limits to 90 days the time within which the decisions of the city boards and agencies may be judicially challenged. Okay. Commissions and agencies, the Willits City Council meets concurrently as the Willits Planning Commission and the City of Willits Successor Agency. Do we?
I think we might have some comment under number 6.
Number 6, right to appeal.
Good evening. I'll try to explain what my understanding is of my situation for you. Previously, last year sometime, Dusty came before the council to ask for a fee waiver for me to consolidate 2 parcels that I have. And we came to that idea based on a plumbing problem I've been having. And originally I just wanted to turn off the water service. It has a old broken system that I cannot afford to fix. And I was told, well, you can't just turn off the water, you have to consolidate the parcels or something like that. Well, I've come back to that choice of a solution for my problem, which is to somehow turn off the city water service until I have the resources to fix the plumbing. I know that, well, I don't know. I don't know exactly what regulations would apply to doing this, but as I spoke earlier about cutting regulations and allowing for different kinds of variances in order to enable people in the community to get things done that they can't afford to do, to promote growth of different kinds of businesses and activities in the community that right now are restricted because there's all these regulations and fees that are required to do those things. And so that's pretty much it in a nutshell. And if there's any questions you have about the exact specifics of the situation, I'd be happy to answer them for you.
I'm just confused about where this fits on the agenda, but I understand.
He's just addressing Professor Ping Pong is addressing the council to seek consideration for his previous request.
This is under right of appeal?
Right.
This is not what this is about. If you read it, it says that if they're dissatisfied with the decision of the city council, they may have the right of a review of that decision by a court. What he just did was public comment.
That's true.
And, you know, I don't think it's appropriate to hear this at this point.
Yeah, that's true, and this matter is not on the council's agenda, and it wouldn't be appropriate for the council to entertain discussion and take action on something that's not on the agenda. And
So it's not been appropriate to have it presented at this point.
Well, that very well may be, but as an opportunity to let the gentleman speak, your manager recommended that he be able to speak. He's made his comment if the matter's really concluded.
So at this point, either he chooses to redress his concerns legally or one of us brings it back. Is that correct?
That's right. As the notice states in your agenda, persons who are dissatisfied with actions of the city council have a process for reviewing those decisions with the court. It's generally a 90-day period. That period has elapsed.
Okay.
And so it's not appropriate for this council at this meeting to take action on something that's really not on your agenda. And the advice has been given to the public that they have a limited period of time to challenge decisions.
Okay. Thank you very much. All right, and no informational reports?
No.
All right. Commissions, agencies, and authorities?
I'm sorry.
Sorry, I guess, yeah, it's commissions, agencies, and authorities.
Right, but you asked about informational reports, which is number 5, and I think you were probably referring to city manager reports. I do have a few things.
Well, actually, no, I was informational reports, and I guess I got confused. So Commissions, agencies, and authorities, we don't have anything.
No.
So it would be city manager reports.
Right, just a couple of things to note. Most of you may have noticed that during one of our recent storms, actually back in December, a large tree fell on a portion of the grandstands at the rodeo grounds. And I just want to give you an update on that. It is city property, so we contacted our insurance carrier, and they went out to evaluate the situation and have plans underway to do those repairs. They understand that they're on a tight time frame to get that section replaced before the 4th of July and Frontier Days festivities. So they've been working with John and their adjuster. So REMIF is our carrier, and there's going to be, I believe it's just going to be the damaged section that will be replaced, but then there are going to be some ADA improvements in terms of walkways that will take place as a result of that. And so it's not simply replacing the one section. There's going to be some additional work, and so far we've been very pleased with the response from REMIF and the adjuster that's come to evaluate it.
Do you have a deductible on that claim?
We do, and I don't know offhand what that is. So I'll get that to you.
The ADA improvements are because it's sort of a new or a repair that's significant enough that it kicks in?
Correct.
But the insurance claim can include that?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. Let's see, I attended a meeting was it last Thursday or Friday, over at the Arts Center. It was Board of Supervisors ad hoc committee meeting regarding PEG funding, and Madge was there, and
actually I was at a meeting here and just
right, that's right, yeah. Anyway, why this came about is because the county is looking at reevaluating their PEG funding, and asking the question, in this day and age of internet connectivity and news and access, basically, how much are the local TV stations still needed? And I can say that there was an incredible turnout from the Willits community and also from Fort Bragg and Ukiah, because this affects all of the community TV stations in the county. But certainly Willits folks were out there in full force talking about the value of our local TV station, and the supervisors took that information, and they will be weighing in on this at a supervisors meeting sometime in the near future. So I'll keep you posted on that. And the last thing, I don't have anything to report under Public Works or Water and Sewer this meeting, but under the building officials' departmental reports, he's going to be talking about ADA issues related to our local businesses. There's been some recent activity from an outside source, and so we've been looking into this, and John will have some detailed information to share with you about that. But we're working with the chamber essentially to research these issues. Basically, there's an attorney that is targeting local businesses for ADA non-compliance, and it's a difficult thing for a small business to deal with. So the chamber and the city are wanting to be a resource in this, and we've talked with REMIF to get their input on this, and John's reached out to some other jurisdictions as well.
So John?
Good evening, council members. Yeah, we have a few properties that have been approached by someone with concerns about ADA compliance. And what I can say is there's a significant misunderstanding of how all of this works out there. Essentially, people are under the impression that the current ADA and current California Building Code accessibility regulations are required to be applied to all properties, and that's really not the case. When a property does substantial improvement, structural upgrades, additions, or new construction, that's when, as part of the approval process of those projects, they're required to meet current California Building Code, accessibility standards, handicap parking, wheelchair accessibility, those types of things, restroom, and things like that. But if the building is not worked on, it's required to meet the requirements or the code that was in effect when that work was done last. If you have a building and it hasn't been worked on since the 70s, nobody's ever stood up and said, no, you have to do this or do that, or comply with these regulations. It was required to comply with those regulations when it was last built, altered, significantly altered, etc. And consequently, people are looking around and saying, well, why isn't this the same as that? It's because we have a lot of different era buildings in town here, and as I said, until they're worked on, I don't have the authority to require code upgrades to them. Now, that being said, I enforce the California Building Code. There are some references in the California Building Code to the Americans with Disabilities Act and the Unruh Civil Rights Act. And so they are included in the California Building Code by reference. And essentially what the California Building Code says was that the stricter of those requirements will be enforced by local departments. Essentially that's what we do. But I really need everybody to understand that just because you have a building doesn't mean you're required to be compliant with current regulations. Current regulations, for example, the 2016 California Building Code became law statewide January 1st and will continue for 3 years. The California Building Codes are a triennial adoption process, so every 3 years we get a new state code. It's approved by the State Assembly. We are obligated as local departments to enforce that. It didn't used to be that way. Jurisdictions used to be able to adopt which codes they wanted. About, I think it's 12 years ago now, the State Assembly said that's not good enough for us. We have jurisdictions that are not enforcing what we consider the appropriate codes, and so they passed a state law, and now when the State Assembly adopts that code, it becomes law statewide the following January 1st.
John, for clarification on something you said before, you indicated that buildings are required to meet the codes of the period when the last time they built the building or did major renovations. Is that?
That's correct.
So when you talk about major renovations and ADA, does that refer to any renovation, whether it's inside or outside?
Yes.
So in other words, if you do something inside the building that has nothing to do with ADA, like build new walls or whatever, would ADA kick in at that point?
Well, let's be careful and call this what it is, the California Building Code, accessibility requirements. And in that case, let's say you remodel one wing of your office building. Then you're required from the point of entry to the property to that particular space be brought up to current accessibility standards in terms of an accessible path. Meaning if it's on the second floor at the far end, you need to have an elevator. Because this involves everything from the point of entry, your parking spaces are reviewed, that accessible path all the way to the unit that's being altered is subject to these requirements. Now, the other end of the building on the second floor, it has nothing to do with that.
Okay.
The restrooms on the way to that building, they have to be brought.
So this triggers everything from the improvement to the street?
Yes, exactly.
Okay. Wow, okay, thanks.
And like I said, it's the code that's in effect when the permit was issued. If there's no, the only thing I'm aware of that trumps that is the barrier removal program. And in public accommodation occupancies, there is a Barrier Removal Act as part of the Americans with Disabilities Act that requires that you take turnstiles and things like that that are barriers to people with disabilities out of the building. It doesn't require that you do a lot of new stuff to the building, but it requires that you take that out. And how we come up with this magic line where you are on this side or that side, there's equations built into the building code. And essentially what they're talking about is if you do substantial work to the building that's worth more than 20% of the value of the building, then you need to step up.
So pretty much any one of our businesses in town would be covered by these regulations if they do any kind of major improvements to their properties.
Absolutely, yes. And to get this the word out and get a common understanding of how it really works, because we have several properties that are involved in this kind of thing right now. Adrian and I have talked about trying to organize a meeting, bring a certified access specialist up, which is a separate credential that the state issues for access specialists, recognizing this is an extremely complicated issue, and it's not really reasonable to expect some building inspector to understand and make these judgments all the way through. So we're talking about probably bringing one of those certified access specialists up and possibly an attorney that deals with ADA issues, and just have a public meeting for property owners and members of the
Sounds smart.
Chamber of Commerce up, and let's get the information out in the open so everybody understands what their exposure is.
Good idea.
You know, honestly, there's a couple of situations in town where someone was a little grieved about how they were treated, and this has turned into a big deal. So let's take a look at it, and let's deal with it, and get the repairs that are necessary made, and also inform the property owners of their actual rights.
John, I think Adrian wanted to ask.
Yeah, I mean, it is a big deal especially for a small business that, and especially at this time in our community. But having an ADA attorney come up, I think is going to be, very valuable. And that's something I talked to Mark Ferguson about, who's our general manager for REMIF, and he knows all about this, and he has a number of ADA attorneys that he's going to be reaching out to, and thinks it's a great idea that we hold a forum and educate everyone about this so that we're all on the same page.
And I guess to be clear, John, what I got the other day explained to me was that an attorney came in and filed action on a client, and the way it was described to me is that the client didn't even know she was suing this business. So it's one of those, I'll call it a shakedown. And apparently it's allowed under the law, and so, and it may mean that you're correct, but because you're a small business, and according to this business owner, his insurance won't cover it because it specifically says it won't cover ADA issues. It's like in the boilerplate of his insurance. So it's one of those, you could fight it, you might win, but you might go broke paying for the attorneys to fight this attorney.
There's the intimidation factor. Right?
So
it's not unlike when we were dealing with Riverwatch.
Yeah. So I guess the other dark side of this whole thing is if I was a local business owner, I might be very reluctant to improve my property because that might open up all kinds of
That might be the
issues.
case, but I suggest that you also inform yourself and find out what the Barrier Removal Act requires of you and what the Unruh Civil Rights Act requires of you. It's basically all geared towards people with disability having common access just like the rest of us.
And in this particular case, this guy wasn't renovating his business. He's now taken a proactive approach in light of this lawsuit, but he stated, it was at Rotary the other day.
Yeah, I know. I saw it.
And basically, an individual came in, talked to this attorney, and I guess they took stock in, well, the following businesses, I had issues navigating their locale, and so that's the route. Greta had a question. Is it for John or?
Yeah, maybe. So Chris and I are very concerned about this. Our building is.
Oh, Greta, could you come up so that folks at the TV line can?
So Chris and I, at the Book Juggler, our building is more than 100 years old, and we know that there are parts of it that are definitely not ADA compliant. Our bathroom, for example, does not meet current standards. We believe we've removed the majority of any barriers, and we do have regular customers who are in wheelchairs who have not had problems accessing the store. But because of this issue, we have looked into having a CASP specialist come and observe our property and give us a, what do they call it, an evaluation basically to figure out if there's anything that you need to be working on. And my understanding is that once you do that, you can have a plan in place that shows you're moving toward compliance. So you don't have to make all of the changes at once, but it legally covers you so that you're not in jeopardy of interfering with someone's civil rights.
I agree 100%. And
so my question is, since we've already approached a couple of specialists and we've gotten quotes on how much it would cost to have them come and evaluate our building, should we go forward with that? Or if you're going to be having a forum to help educate business owners, should we wait?
I would suggest that you wait until we have this forum so that you're more sure of how you want to proceed.
Okay.
But I wholeheartedly encourage every property owner, commercial property owner, public accommodation properties, to look into this.
Yeah.
And you know.
And it's not just I don't, for me personally, it's not just a insurance issue and a liability issue. It's doing the right thing, making sure that your customers have access
Absolutely.
to your business, and you know they have the same rights and accessibility that anybody else does.
Yeah, I want to tell you that one of the largest commercial property owners in the city, probably the largest commercial property owner in the city, has hired a CASP and is purchasing an evaluation for the entire facility in their company. That being said, there are also issues relative to historical buildings. So if your building's 100 years old, you might want to look into possibly it being on the registry, which gives you a whole lot of rights that you wouldn't have with a modern building.
Great, thank you.
I think our hope in talking to John earlier today is that we, having this brought to light, that we would be in a position where information can get out to some of the property owners. I mean, it's better, obviously you're taking a proactive approach, but if there's some businesses out there wavering, then at least they can hear what's out there, and then when they go contract with somebody, at least they know what questions to ask. So.
A good example of, I'm sorry.
No. Somebody had a question, but is this for John, or is this?
Yes, the ADA, is that for disabled people?
American Disabilities Act.
Yes.
And if you could state your name for the public.
Yes, my name is Barbara Plaza. I am a disabled person, and it's very hard for me to get up all of these stairs to the business upstairs to the code enforcer. So is that also included in this type of conversation? Because it sounds like it's just for the property owners. Because my legs were severed to the bone, and I can't walk up those stairs all the time. So I just wondered if it's to our own community buildings.
Barbara, understand we have difficulty with the stairs. I'm more than happy to come downstairs and meet with you. The only alternative...
no, it's not. disability accessible. Civil rights.
So,
what I wanted to mention is the issue at the Rodeo grounds. Because there's going to be structural reconstruction there, significant structural reconstruction, we are required to bring the accessible path from the street to these facilities. We need to install wheelchair seating along this path. The path needs to connect also to the accessible restrooms. And so essentially the repair to the grandstands themselves are just repair to the grandstands, but the bigger issue will be the accessible path and the new wheelchair spaces and companion seating that's required to go along with that. So there's an issue where we've got damage. We were never required to do this up until this point, but we've got damage and that kicks it over, and now we are required to.
Couldn't an argument be made that the insurance company should step in and cover the cost of that?
Actually, I'm going to be spending the next 2 days at the REMAF meeting and talking with Mark quite a bit about these ADA issues.
Can I add one more thing? I wanted to, just in response to that, I did find out that there are IRS credits available for businesses who have these CSP inspections, and then if you do go ahead and make any improvements to your building in result to what you learned in your inspection, you may be able to get tax credits for those as well. So there's something out there for property owners.
I'm excited that we're going to have some education, because as a business owner, that's what you want to know before something happens, what you need to do to make things accessible as well as being compliant.
all right, John, thank you.
Well, I'm here, if you don't mind, I'd kind of like to bring you up to date some of the other stuff that's going on. We're starting to put together
Yeah, I have one question. Sorry, John.
Oh, I'm sorry. Looking in the wrong direction here.
Hello, Councilman. Congratulations, Jerry, from being the mayor. My name is Danny Shaw. The question I have, John, if the building is over 50-year-old, is there such a thing as a grandfather clause?
That's an oversimplification, but yes, for existing and especially historic buildings, there are relief from certain regulations.
Okay.
Just because the building's over 50 years old doesn't give you much. But if it's a registered historical building, that kicks you into a whole different area there, and there are a lot of there's a lot of relief from specific requirements. Yeah, and a good example would be maybe this building, where if we were to do significant upgrades to this building, we would be required to do an elevator to get to the second floor. But there's also relief there in that if it's an unreasonable hardship, if it'll cause major structural changes to the building, well, then the building official has the authority to waive those requirements.
But in the case of this gentleman, it was basically it's a shakedown lawsuit, so that's the hard part.
Yeah, we had those in the hotel. There's a lawyer just going around the property. The customer's not even staying there, and they just assess the property and they send you the notices. So
yeah, so even though you might have that waiver, the problem is then you have to deal with this attorney that, you might have to hire an attorney to fight this attorney, and then the question, or I'm sure he offers you a financial settlement not to fight him, and
yeah, they do settle out of court. That's what they're looking for. So.
Yeah.
And I'll mention it again, just to clarify things, that if you're not doing any work on your building, I really don't have the authority to show up and say, you have to do this or you have to do that. It's when I do, when I issue a building permit for improvements on your building, additions to your building, or new construction, then I'm obligated to enforce those. As far as a building that I have no business with and haven't for 20 years, I really don't have the authority to walk in there and tell them to do this or that or the other thing.
Thank you.
Matt, do you have a...
Well, just that, I guess when we have this forum and get some legal advice, but it seems like if this attorney is basically just threatening to sue people and asking for money so he doesn't sue, but he doesn't have much grounds for suit if that business owner, building owner hasn't, in fact, made an improvement that would have kicked in the additional requirements. But it's a question of how does that business owner deal with it without having a bunch of legal costs to just dismiss these basically frivolous lawsuits. And that's what I think, if we have an attorney that would help our business owners know about what their rights are and try to avoid having them get, shaken down by a sort of, whatever, over-ambitious attorney just trying to make money.
Yeah, but the reality is we found ourselves with Riverwatch. It doesn't matter if they have a course of action or not. If they threaten to sue you, then you're faced with, you have a choice. You can go to court, and that's the only way you can defeat it. You have to go to court, and you have the legal costs, and you have the possibility you could lose and have to pay up, or you just pay them the blood money and they can go away. That's the option. That's what it comes down to.
Lest you feel singled out on this, a couple of months ago, one person filed 21 lawsuits in the city of Napa in 1 month. All of them were small businesses.
Regarding ADA?
It's an industry.
Yeah.
Same lawyer?
They all use the same one.
One person. Jeez.
Filed 21 lawsuits in 1 month.
That's job creation.
For one person?
Yeah, hey.
We just did something on 60 Minutes or Dateline or something to this topic.
Just go Google it. It'll surprise the heck out of you.
Yeah.
I would also suggest that as business owners, you would want to reach out to our legislative representatives. I talked with them a few years back about Riverwatch, and they listened, and, our state representatives trying to change federal law is difficult, but they need to know what's going on in order to, try and be responsive and figure out a way to deal with it. Mm-hmm. And so we are letting them know, but all of you should likewise let them know.
And just one last thing here. I did a poll this afternoon of all the building officials in the area, Fort Bragg, City of Ukiah, Mendocino County, the North Coast Builders Exchange. None of them have CASPs employed with them directly. They all use essentially the same consultant to deal with these things. If they have, for example, a hospital or some major commercial development, rather than do the plan check themselves, they'll go ahead and hire this consultant firm to come do the plan check and basically let them know what their responsibilities are. Like I said before, it is a really complex field, and what I understand from talking with North Coast Builders Exchange, there are less than 500 CASPs in the entire state, and none in the North Coast. So we don't represent enough money for them, I guess.
It's a new business opportunity.
To go on, we're starting to make inroads for a habitat restoration project that will also help relieve some of the flooding problems on Broadus Creek in this last reach between East Valley and Commercial Street. We're looking at that and possibly replacing the Commercial Street Bridge with a bridge that allows more volume to flow underneath it, and to look at the artificial creek channel that we have from East Commercial Street to the wastewater plant that many years ago was levied and narrowed, and unfortunately it's become choked with vegetation and silted in because the water slows down there and everything falls out of the water at that point, so it's sort of self-fulfilling prophecy that it's going to plug itself up. So we're looking at ways to do this and at the same time restore the habitat the spawning habitat that's there. Right now, we've got mud and trees, and that's it. And that's not even decent spawning. So I'll be working with Joe Scriven, with Mendocino County, and probably Army Corps of Engineers and Department of Water Resources, and eventually FEMA will be in. But the whole thing really is to, let's see if we can do some good and help ourselves at the same time. Also been working with Willits Unified School District on the lease of the gymnasium and the swimming pool to Willits Unified to manage and maintain. A separate agreement for the tennis courts that we will be managing and maintaining, but they're going to partner with us for some repairs to get the thing back on track. They're going to provide some new lighting there. And I'm really pleased working with Mark Westerberg. He's the superintendent of Willits Unified, and he really is a go-getter. He wants to get these, and I want to mention that the Willits Youth Soccer program is stepping up and doing some repairs, significant repairs on the inside of the gymnasium that, for more than a decade, we've been looking at that going, how are we ever going to deal with this? And I want to say that a certain council member and her group stepped up. I appreciate it very much.
Thank you. I want to instill some community and school pride.
Oh, I attended an EMSLA meeting this last week, and really encouraged. I want to tell you that Louisa Morris, the new director of EMSLA, another go-getter. She wants to solve problems, not just talk about them. And to that end, we're working on possibly creating a recycling program with Solid Waste of Willits for composition roofing material. At this point, the only place to recycle composition roofing material on the North Coast is between Santa Rosa and Sebastopol. And as you could probably imagine, it's kind of difficult for me to say, okay, you're going to strip the shingles off your roof and you're going to haul them to the next county. What we're looking at putting together is a dedicated storage facility here where they can come and dump their composition roofing waste in that, pay a tipping fee, and when that container's full, Solid Waste of Willits will transfer it down to the recycling. And this will be the first time that we've actually got an opportunity to enforce our construction and demolition recycling ordinance. Thanks.
Thanks, Joe. And I guess community development. Does do you have anything else?
Do you have anything? Okay.
No one here from Public Works and Engineering, wastewater, so.
No, and I checked in with both Bill from Public Works and Scott from Water and Wastewater, and they both said there was really nothing to report this time.
Jim, anything illegal?
No report.
Kathy, I know you're just back.
Yes, I would like to thank Dolores Peterson for sitting in for me at the last council meeting. It was very much appreciated to take an extended vacation, and she said you all were very gracious. So I just wanted to say thank you to her for a job well done. And your prayer breakfast. For those of you that are planning to attend, if you haven't called, let me know and I'll respond for it. That's all I have.
Okay, I guess we're down to City Council and Committee Reports, League of Cities. I forwarded to you, but Sarah Round sent me an email. Do you get those?
Yeah.
Right. Is it proper for me to send those to everybody in the council, or should I, so I could forward those?
Sure, yeah.
Okay. Sarah sent, basically, there was an executive order signed by President Trump today regarding securing our borders, and the League of Cities put out, and so I guess response advisories, so I'll forward that to all of you. And then That's all I've gotten. I don't think they've met.
No.
And, yeah, when those meetings are.
They're quarterly, and, let's see, the one in December was a special meeting, so I'm trying to remember before that. We should have one coming up, maybe in March? Okay.
Could I could email Sarah, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Does that advisory require us to do something?
Build a border wall.
But we don't have a board.
Well, I think the
of
president is
Still
basically saying, they're basically laying out what he wants to see, and he kind of sent it out to law enforcement and government as a whole as an executive order, so, and then the league is responding, and obviously I heard today, before I came to the meeting, the governor was responding to it, and you should see it on the news, so.
But we don't need to actually
No,
do
at the
anything.
moment,
Okay,
no.
thank you. I hope
It's just, so, then MCOG,
MCOG did not meet.
all right. EDFC.
Madge went.
Yeah, I went to the one that was held on January 12th, and it was quite a lively meeting, went through all sorts of financial data, and which they've been upgrading their record keeping. The bookkeeping was, had been a challenge before. We have more staff now at EDFC, and reporting on the loans and various projects that are underway. The good news is that the wool project, I mentioned this 2 weeks ago too, but the construction part of that has been done. They're putting in the equipment now, so probably in the spring there will be a open house. This is for a wool mill in Ukiah, but quite a few people in Willits are invested in that, so I'd like to keep reporting on that. And then they're going to have, EDFC is going to have a strategic planning meeting on February 9th. And I think Sabrina and perhaps I also will go because I want to continue to follow what's going on at EDFC. So that's the main news there.
MSWA, I don't think it's met, right?
Yeah, it just met last week.
Oh, did it? Okay.
And the bad news, John, is that Louisa Morris has submitted her resignation. So, yeah.
She just started a month ago.
I think it was 3 months ago, and she just, what her letter says that it isn't a good fit for her. I think she's under tremendous stress. But that's my interpretation of it. But anyway, she's giving plenty of notice. There are some other applicants that applied when she applied, and we're looking at whether to open that up beyond that or not, or whether any of those other applicants might be suitable. And that was the really bad news. And then Dan Hamburg reported, and it's in today's Willits news, that the county has reached a kind of a negotiation with Jerry Ward about raising some rates, not as much as he asked for, but something that will give him some relief and some accommodations. And that meanwhile, they're going to go for a real thorough audit so that they can all actually get the same numbers, because it's been a continuing problem where, you know, Jerry claims certain financial stress, and you can't be sure that the audit, you know, you can't identify exactly what's going on. So they're working on that. And there is another, yeah, I can't remember. It was a very interesting meeting, and it was really disheartening to find out that Louisa is going to be resigning over the next several months. But she is doing a lot of good things meanwhile. It's very good.
MTA.
There was some miscommunication because they hadn't responded. Adrian had sent them an email and we hadn't heard from them. And then I got a call from Madge that she got the packet, so there was some transition.
Okay.
It was today. Their meeting was this
Their meeting was
afternoon.
today.
Okay.
And neither of us went.
Well,
by mistake.
All right, LAFCO. I went to the City Selection Committee meeting today, and I'm now our LAFCO representative. Apparently, somebody reported out that we have had a seat on there for 10 years. I don't know if that's...
I don't know.
Wasn't positive if that was the case. Point Arena wanted it, Ukiah wanted it, there were 2 seats. The alternate for LAFCO out of Ukiah is now their representative, and that was agreed to. Point Arena agreed to support us being on there for 2 years. They're interested in serving on there. They will want our support for the alternate position. But in light of our new bypass, I made the case that we would like to be on there, and they were gracious enough to step aside and let us be on there. So I'll be, as soon as I get the lay of the land of LAFCO, I will come back and report. And I don't think we've had a finance committee or a water and wastewater systems meeting. Revive Ed?
No. What I'm looking for from staff is, I don't know if we have a calendar update, but I've asked them to identify quarterly meetings on our calendar, and that has to be done together. So you can look forward to that, hopefully in at the next council meeting.
Okay. Ad hoc committee meetings, Revive Ed. Ad hoc committee meetings, the marijuana ad hoc committee is going to meet, but I'm discussing with Dusty that at this point it's just going to be staff and the council, folks, myself and Madge at this point, just to get caught up on what staff is preparing. And Jim, would you be available by phone?
Yeah, when do you plan to meet?
Tuesday.
Okay.
Tuesday, 10:30.
And Jerry, you might want to mention that the participation in that Prop 64, I know we're both registered for that, which I would think would be helpful.
Except I know that they were limiting how many folks from...
Did we have more?
I think this is the one down in Ukiah. And
yeah.
I registered for it.
Yeah, so I think they had a list of, or they indicated there are only so many seats available. That's what the registration was. So, and any other ad hoc?
No, not at this time.
Other committee reports? Nope. Okay. Council member reports and recommendations. Anybody have anything? All right. No ordinances. Any good in welfare?
I'll just make an announcement that we're having another Trio of Trios concert. It's actually 2 trios and a duet, but the duet has an extra singer every once in a while. Anyway, so we're calling it Trio of Trios, and it is a fundraiser for the Willits Food Bank. And it'll be very good music, and it's February 11th at the Methodist Church. And it's from 7 to 9.
And then Rotary's having its crab sale this Friday, Saturday at San Francisco and Maine. Obviously, we're not going to have the total traffic going down Main Street like we used to, but I'm hoping the locals come out and support the crab sale. It's for the scholarship program at the high school. So,
what shift do you have?
Early morning.
Do you? I'm in the afternoon on Saturday.
So, all right.
That should be big this year.
Hopefully. And closed session, we have 2 items pursuant to anticipated litigation. So.